Alright guys, today we are going to be doing a carburetor, fuel lines, and primer ball, and fuel filter, air filter, blah blah blah, on an Echo cs-305 chainsaw. Everything comes in a kit. I get them off Amazon. I use a lot of these, so you know they work. There's nothing wrong with them. I don't have any issues. I've been doing this for years. I'd have to say a couple years ago we'd get quite a few more issues than we do nowadays with the carburetors. Nowadays, I mean, one every couple of months, and I do 10 carburetors a day, 5 days a week, you know. So, comes with carburetor, this, oh, what do you call it? It's a one-way valve. It's a pressure release valve for the gas tank. Fuel lines, the vent is what it's called. A couple of primer balls, spark plug, fuel filter. Everything you'll need for this job's in here. Air filter. I'm surprised actually they usually send gaskets too. There's no gaskets out of this, so just make sure you use your old gasket. That's probably a rubber boot that behind that. That's probably why there's no gasket in this. Alright, so just click the link below. All your parts will be right there in the link. Just click it, and easy to get to. First thing we're going to do is take off this air filter flathead screwdriver. You can tell this guy liked to do maintenance on his yeah, I like people that don't like doing maintenance on their own stuff. I love them. Alright, then we got two Phillips heads right here and here. We're going to pop them out. So we're going to take off these whole thing, but pay attention, there's little washers in here that got to come off with it too. We don't want to lose those. Those are kind of important. So we got these two little washers. We want to make sure stay on there, mainly because this flap right here comes off. It's a choke flap. It'll come off the choke arm like that. It will center on one of those washers. So just kind of keep that all together so you don't get confused with it. You can pull the choke arm out now and get it out of the way. I like keeping this fuel line right here. This is the old fuel line. I found that it's hard as rock, but it lasts longer than if you change out with the new one. So we're going to leave that one there. Pull this fuel line off of here. There's basically this primer ball. Let me turn the flashlight on. This is hard to show everything. It's one of the reasons I don't use a tripod is because you can't see everything. So if you look in here all the way down, there's two flaps, one on each side, one there, one over here, so we can pull this fuel line out of the way. But I like reusing this one. If you just push on the flap a little bit, you can get it to release, boom, just like that. See, it's two flaps that hook in. So you're just trying to get it to pop out and get it out of the way. Alright, now you're going to break it free from, the back side, and actually we're going to try to pull this fuel line off with a pair of needle nose. There we go. Get that off now, off the carburetor. And we're going to pull this straight on out. It's got a throttle arm in here that we need to unhook. I need to get it to where I can get to it again. I'm going to pull this side out first, and then we got to unhook this throttle arm. It's just hooks in there, so we just kind of wiggle it up until it comes off. It's proving to be quite difficult one-handed. I'm going to reach in there with needle nose and hold it with needle nose and get it to come off. See, I just grabbed it with needle nose and held it. So there's no. Oh, it's got a gasket. There is a gasket there. So make sure you still got your gasket down there. It's got a little hole on the bottom. That's your vacuum line for your, for your fuel pump that's built into the carburetor. All right, so now this is what we replace fuel lines wise. First, we're gonna go ahead and open up this gas tank, drain all the gas, get it out of there. Pull the gas cap off. If you look in there, you'll see the fuel line. You're gonna reach in there with some needle nose, grab the fuel line, and pull it right on out. Boom. All right. Take the new fuel line here, cut the end into a point, stab it in to the grommet. We're going to reach in here, grab it with the needle nose again, pull it out, cut the point off, twist nice and flush. New fuel filter, stab it on. Then we're going to pull it back until it lays on the bottom of the tank, like that. Should be good right there like that, just laying right on the bottom of the tank. We're going to go ahead and leave this nice and long. We're going to replace this one here. Just go ahead and pull it off with a needle nose. The other one's a vent. We don't care. That one's fine. It's good. Unless it's cracked and leaking, it's fine. We're going to cut this the same length off the end of this. So just line them up, cut them the same length. Stab the new one on. Alright, new primer ball. The short nipple is suction, the long nipple goes to this black line. So we're going to go ahead with the long nipple to the back side. We're going to stick this in. And we're going to push it until we hear it click. Then we're going to go ahead and attach this fuel line to the long nipple. If you got to, like I cut this one a little long, we're going to cut a little bit off of it, shorten it up because you want it to go straight to it. I just made it a little long so that it's easier to cut some off of it than put some on it. And then we're going to attach it in there. So I've got it attached to the long nipple, the short nipple left. Alright, we're going to line up our carburetors and make sure everything's pointing in the same direction. So sometimes I'll get these and they're flipped around, but they're both going the same way, so we're good there. It was the back side one that was hooked into the throttle, so we're going to take the new one and we're going to hook it into the throttle with this hole right here. Got that hooked in. Now we're going to work our way behind, the idle screw behind these lines, like so, like that. And I think I'm going to bolt this thing down now before I go any further, just to make sure everything's in place. So let me get all this lined up. Takes two hands. Got to get this in place. I got to get it hooked in first, and then once you get it hooked into the choke, then you can start playing with tightening it down. Hold on. Get it all kind of lined up in there. And then we're going to try to find the holes in the back by turning these until they start catching and wiggling them around until they kind of fall in and start catching. Okay, once you've gotten them started, you want to get them in just enough to kind of snug a little bit. You don't want to tighten them. Just want to get them a little snugged up. You know, like this one's all the way out. And get it in where it's snugged up. Because see, the washer on this is sitting dead center on the bolt, but this plate here, this choke plate, is not sitting dead center on that washer. So if you tighten it, you won't be able to move that choke. So you got to kind of just snug it, move the choke back and forth. It'll center itself on the washer. Snug it a little more. I think we're good. All right, then we can tighten it down. Go ahead and tighten it down. Make sure when it's tight that your choke still works fine. And then we're gonna cut this to length, this line to length. Here, I'll just take a chunk off for now. We're gonna need a little more than that taken off. This is just so I can see in there. And then, you know, where it'll bend over and stab in there. You get it in there. You can always pull a little bit of fuel line if you cut it too short and get it in there. It needs to be a direct, straight-on shot, you know, into this. Sometimes you even have to bend this tab, you know, this nipple down a little bit, but I think it's in the perfect direction. So we're going to go ahead and cut this to length and stab it onto the fuel nipple. So I actually did have to push this nipple down just a little bit. You don't want it to be kinked at all, or it won't let the fuel come through. And I like going with the old fuel line that was on here. So I'm going to stab this one back up. This gets hard as a rock. Like if you get one that's solid as a rock, it's fine. It works. So and it never goes bad. So just reuse it. If you have to, cut a new length, but you got to make it exactly the right length. If it's too long, it'll kink and it won't work. You know. And if it's too short, when it shrinks up like this, it'll pull off the end. So it's got to be perfect length. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stab this up onto the primer ball, and then stab it onto the carburetor. I put it on the carburetor first, and then up onto the primer ball. That. Now we're going to go ahead and put a little bit of fuel in this and prime it up, see what crappens. But you know, make sure your filter's still on the bottom. Good. Gas is in it. Just push that right on in. Tighten it down. Alright, cross your fingers. Boom. That's a good sign. Primed up good. That means you got your fuel lines hooked up properly. So it bogs down when I'm hitting the throttle, which is alright. This means you need to adjust your carburetor. So right now it's idling really high. So I think I'm going to turn to low counterclockwise just a tad, and that'll bring the idle down. This is the idle screw too, so you can do the idle screw as well. But I think I'm going to turn to low, and that'll bring the idle down while enriching it a little bit. And it'll hopefully even make it throttle up. So I'm going to find a better screwdriver. Let me show you. See, it's just a flathead. And then there's a high end. It's just underneath that hose. You got to kind of push the hose out of the way and get into the high end. Usually, like if you're working on your chainsaw and you know it's an old carb and it's bogging out, you would take the high end and you would turn it counterclockwise just slightly. But since the idle's so high, I think it's the low end that's doing it. So we're going to adjust that up. So this one has an issue with the clutch being engaged all the time too. So you have to do some clutch springs on it. But other than that, she's rocking and rolling. I actually had to start it up and have it idle high, and then turn it down to keep turning the low end counterclockwise till it idled down, and then it was fine. You see, like just like that. I could give it a little bit higher RPMs by going the high end and going back clockwise, turning it up. But you want to have it have some power too, so you don't want to go too high in RPM. You'll get too lean, you'll lose your power. So maybe a little bit more tweaking on it. I'm going to do the clutch springs next. Yeah, that's about it. Alright guys, this help you out in any way, shape, or form, give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. Yeah, today's t-shirt will be in the description below. If you want me to do any advertising for you, mail me some t-shirts, mail me some stuff, message me. Be more than happy to. Peace.